Good evening, everybody. Welcome to tonight's meeting of the Escondido City Council. Please rise for a moment of reflection and remain standing for the flag salute.
Yes, please join me in a moment of reflection. We come together tonight to say thank you. Thank you for the privilege, the blessing, the honor it is to serve here in the city of Escondido. We come together tonight as a diverse community, a community from backgrounds, different beliefs, different presents, and different futures, yet one common goal, that is the betterment of this city. We come together tonight to seek guidance, wisdom, and discernment during deliberations that transpire this evening, and in doing so, we lift up Councilmember Fitzgerald, Councilmember Joe Garcia, Councilmember Christian Garcia, Deputy Mayor Martinez, and Mayor White. May they be granted peace and wisdom as they lead our city into a bright and prosperous future. Amen.
Thank you. This meeting is called to order. We'll do a quick roll call. Councilmember Fitzgerald.
Present.
Councilman Joe Garcia.
Here.
Councilman Christian Garcia.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Martinez.
Present.
And I, Mayor White, am here. We'll move on to proclamations. And this month's proclamation is Alzheimer's and Brain Awareness Month. And I would invite anybody here for that proclamation to join me at the podium. Out with this proclamation. I actually have family members who had some form of Alzheimer's in the past, so it's an honor to be able to do this tonight. And it says, whereas June 2025 is recognized as Alzheimer's Disease and Brain Awareness Month, dedicated to educating the public, raising awareness, and encouraging brain health. And whereas June 2025, the longest day, symbolizes the fight against Alzheimer's, honoring the strength and resilience of those impacted. And whereas California is home to 720,000 individuals living with Alzheimer's, with the number expected to grow significantly over the next 20 years, especially among communities of color. And whereas Alzheimer's is a leading cause of death in California, placing immense emotional and financial burdens on over 1.3 million unpaid family caregivers. And whereas disparities in diagnosis persist, and while there is currently no cure, California has invested over $25 million into research to change the trajectory of this disease. And whereas individuals with Alzheimer's and their caregivers deserve ongoing recognition, resources, and community support. Now, therefore, I, Dane White, Mayor of the City of Escondido, do hereby proclaim June 2025 as Alzheimer's Disease and Brain Awareness Month. And June 20th, 2025 as the longest day, urging all citizens to raise awareness, support caregivers, and promote brain health. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Would you mind putting this for me? Hello all, and thank you so much, Mayor White. We are so grateful to receive this proclamation. I'm Zoe Bowles. I'm the Public Policy and Advocacy Manager at the San Diego and Imperial County chapter of the Alzheimer's Association. And on behalf of our entire chapter, we are just very honored and grateful to accept this proclamation from the City of Escondido, recognizing June as Alzheimer's and Brain Awareness Month. This recognition is so impactful and important because there are nearly 7 million Americans living with Alzheimer's disease. And data also shows that more than 75,000 of those Americans live here in San Diego County. Alzheimer's and Brain Awareness Month was created to bring awareness to and to honor those individuals and to the many more millions of friends and families who are caregivers for somebody living with a disease. The association leads the way to end Alzheimer's and all other dementia by accelerating global research, driving risk reduction and early detection, and maximizing quality care at support. Here at home, we support our community by conducting educational programs for caregivers, fundraising for research initiatives to improve existing treatment options and identify a cure, and letting state and federal policymakers know what they can do to better support our community. We do all this with the goal of cultivating a community that is resilient, connected, and informed about this disease, as we all navigate the many challenges posed by Alzheimer's and other dementia. Over the last 12 months, our chapter has been able to provide free resources and support through our educational programs and support groups to 6,500 individuals across our county. We are proud to offer educational support programs in English and Spanish here in Escondido, and we are very excited to be launching a support group soon here in Escondido. We also host an annual Walk to End Alzheimer's in North County, which brings together hundreds of our community members for what we view as our largest support group, which also happens to be an incredibly impactful fundraising event that supports Alzheimer's research nationally and here at home. Across the county, we have more than $20 million of Alzheimer's and dementia research funded by the association in partnership with our world-class research institutions. Once again, thank you so much to the City of Escondido for recognizing June as Alzheimer's and Brain Awareness Month. We are very hopeful that together, through our collective efforts, we will end Alzheimer's together. Thank you again.
Thank you. Can we get a picture right down here with the whole city council? You guys are welcome to join for the photo if you'd like.
With the council about our support groups.
Do we have a report out of closed session tonight?
Yes, we do. The City Council heard 2 matters in closed session this evening. Only 1 matter is appropriate for a public report. In the case of Winchester versus City of Escondido, the council authorized a settlement in the total amount of $40,000 by a vote of 5-0. Nothing further to report. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. We'll move on to non-agenda public comments.
No non-agenda public comments on this.
Okay, we'll move on to the consent calendar. Tonight, items 1 through 11 are on consent. Items on consent are approved in a single motion. Do I have a motion to approve items 1 through 11?
I motion to approve.
All right. You second it? Perfect. Please vote.
Voting is open. Motion approved, 5-0.
All right, that takes us to public hearings. The first one being citywide energy roadmap program. Oh, just kidding. We continued this?
Yes.
All right. I just saw that. Sorry. Item 13 is fiscal year 5-year consolidated plan, and I would invite our presenters up for that.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. My name's Danielle Lopez. I'm your Housing and Neighborhood Services Manager, and with me this evening is Norma Olkeen, our Management Analyst over our home program. Tonight, we'll be asking you to adopt Resolution Number 2025-69, approving the 2025-2026 CDBG and home budgets, allocations, approving the 2025-2029 5-year consolidated plan, and the 2025-2026 one-year action plan. Tonight, we'll be discussing CDBG and home programs, the action plan process, and funding recommendations. Here we have the allocations that we'll be receiving this year. These are our actual numbers. We received the official allocation amounts on May 13th. So for CDBG, we'll be receiving $1.3 million. This is 2.5% less than last year, but is still consistent with previous allocation fluctuations. And for the home program, we'll be receiving $590,000, which is a 2.78% increase. As a reminder, the city's funding is determined by a formula calculation by HUD based on population and poverty levels. So it's completely normal for the city's allocation to fluctuate year to year, causing funding increases and decreases in various programs. As a recipient of the federal funds, the city is required to submit 3 important documents. The first one here is the Consolidated Plan. This is the 5-year plan that outlines the city's goals and funding priorities for CDBG, home, and ESG funding. Although we do not receive ESG funding, we are including it in the plan just in case we receive it anytime over the next 5-year period. For Consolidated Plan includes a needs assessment, a citizen participation plan, and it identifies priorities that funding allocations will be based on. The current plan expires June 30th, and the new plan you are being asked to approve tonight will take us through 2029. Regarding the priorities of the Consolidated Plan, the City Council approved the new 5-year priorities on April 16th. These priorities are reviewed and reaffirmed or updated by the City Council on an annual basis through the next document you see here, which is the Annual Action Plan. We're required to submit an annual action plan that identifies what specific activities, programs, and projects will be funded and how they will address the HUD national objectives and city local priorities annually. And the last document you see is the Consolidated Annual Performance Report, or CAPER, and that is how we report back to HUD on what our accomplishments were, typically how many people we served in a year, on an annual basis. What you see here are the HUD CDBG national objectives. Anything we fund with CDBG funding has to meet one of these 3 objectives. So historically, all of our activities meet the first objective of benefiting low and moderate income persons or areas, but the other 2, they can aid in the prevention of slum or blight, or they can address an urgent need. The last one here, addressing an urgent need, is very rare. It typically applies to natural disasters, and the grantee must be able to prove that they cannot fund what they want to fund on their own, and there are no other funding sources available to do that. When we create our 5-year consolidated plan from the outreach and the analysis, several priorities are identified that guide how and where our funding will be invested. These priorities are approved by the City Council and then, like I said, reaffirmed each year through the annual action plan process. The public hearing to approve these priorities was held on April 16th. What you see here are the priorities for the next consolidated plan period, and that includes supporting the development and preservation of affordable housing, expanding access to supportive services to prevent and reduce homelessness, promoting safe and healthy communities, and delivering essential public services to vulnerable populations. Another requirement of HUD is that we have a citizen participation plan that outlines procedural guidelines around public notification and citizen participation for when we create these documents. Per the requirements of the plan, per the requirements of the citizen participation plan, we are required to hold 2 public hearings. We are required to provide a 30-day public review period of the documents, and we are required to notice the public hearings 10 days in advance. And the dates of what we did for those are listed here on this slide. In addition to the public noticing requirement, we provide several opportunities for public outreach and comment. We held 3 community forums. We presented at the Neighborhood Leadership Forum. We attended 2 homeless subcommittee meetings. We attended Escondido Education Compact's cafe meeting where they also distributed our information to 300 service providers on their listserv. And then we also did a bilingual community needs assessment survey as well as a stakeholder survey. And those were distributed in hard copy. They were on our website and on our social media. So moving on to the actual action plan, this is the overview of our process. On April 9th, staff presented to the Homeless Subcommittee to provide an overview of the CDBG home and ESG programs. The city identified priorities and the recommended allocation process. On April 16th, staff presented that same information to the City Council, who reviewed and approved the consolidated plan priorities, an allocation process, and the release of an RFP for CDBG funding. On March 21st, the request for proposal was released. 18 proposals were received, totaling $1.5 million in requests for $1.3 million of available funds. June 17th, staff again presented to the Homeless Subcommittee this time on the proposed allocations for the 2025 action plan. The subcommittee supported the staff's recommendation you see in your staff report and will be reviewing in the next few slides. And finally, tonight we'll be conducting the second HUD-required public hearing to approve project allocations and the submittal of the plans to HUD. Now we'll talk about the specific allocations for the CDBG and home programs. For CDBG, this is what we will have to work with this year. It is the allocation process that was approved at the April 16th meeting. So we will have the maximum of 20% of our allocation used for administration of the grant. That will fund 2 full-time staff and the operations of the CDBG program. The maximum of 15% will be used to fund public services. These are things like Mama's Kitchen, senior cares, and the remaining 65% will be for capital projects. As we mentioned earlier, on March 21st, staff released a request for proposals for CDBG funding. 18 were received. The proposals were evaluated by Housing and Neighborhood Services staff using a rubric that included scores considering things such as project eligibility, project description, agency information, including capacity and experience with federal grants, budget, and their plan and ability to spend the CDBG funding in a timely manner. Each subrecipient will enter into a contract with the city and will be held accountable for carrying out their project as proposed. All contracts are monitored quarterly through reports provided by the subrecipient that include backup documentation, including but not limited to time cards, copies of checks, ledgers, participant information, and project-specific documents. Additionally, they're monitored in person annually to ensure compliance with financial practices and CDBG eligibility. So now we'll get into the proposals for who we are suggesting the funding go to this year. The first we have here is Mama's Kitchen, which is an in-home delivery meal service that provides medically tailored meals to low-income Escondido residents who are living with serious health conditions. Palomar Family Counseling Services provides a program that integrates evidence-based mental health interventions into early childhood education centers in Escondido. This program enhances children's social emotional development, school readiness, and provides training to both parents and educators. Next, we have the Escondido Mobile Recreation Program. This is a free 7-week summer camp hosted out of Grove Park and run by the city's recreation department. And Senior Cares, which is run out of our Park Avenue Community Center and provides a dedicated resource center with trained staff that connects seniors to essential services such as transportation, meal programs, social services, and other support systems that promote housing stability and overall well-being. Project Next. This funding will provide services to assist low-income high school students in Escondido by supporting the Future Center at Escondido High School. Services provided include financial counseling, skill building, and networking opportunities for college and career readiness. It is a requirement of HUD that we provide fair housing services. So Legal Aid Society of San Diego enforces fair housing rights and helps Escondido residents to maintain housing stability. The program provides education and outreach regarding rights and responsibilities under the Fair Housing Act and related state laws, provides legal education, advice and/or representation, and provides testing to detect fair housing discrimination from housing providers. Operation Hope is a trauma-informed, client-centered program that provides critical support to families and single women experiencing homelessness. And Alabaster Jar provides shelter and therapeutic services for survivors of human trafficking who are experiencing or are at risk of becoming homeless. So here we have a summary of the projects I just talked about with their specific funding allocations. You will also see that there are organizations that are not recommended for funding. Unfortunately, we couldn't fund all of the organizations requesting funding for public service dollars. We received $500,000 approximately in requests for $200,000 of available funding. The organizations chosen were prioritized based on a number of things, like the level of public benefit, so the number of people that they would serve, or their history of funding. Based on this, Interfaith, Voices for Children, and the Center for Community Solutions were not recommended for funding because they have been funded for several years now in a row. Technically, CDBG funding is similar to development impact fees, meaning that they are intended to provide new or expanded services. The regulations don't prohibit a city from continuing to provide funding at the same level, but again, it prefers to provide new or expanded services. CSA was not selected simply because they're a fair housing provider, and we opted to recommend funding for legal aid. And United Way was not recommended because the project was so large that it would utilize almost the entire allocation of public service money. With that, it could also risk our ability to meet our timeliness spending requirement if they did not reach their goals. So now we'll look at our capital projects. The historic structure assessment will include drafting and publishing an RFP for a historic structure assessment report, selecting a firm to complete the assessment, and developing a work plan to complete renovations or restorations, depending on what the assessment requires, of the historic buildings in Grape Day Park. The neighborhood cleanup project, this funding supports our efforts in our 18 organized neighborhood groups. Overall, it improves the livability of neighborhoods through education, outreach, and beautification. Neighborhood services staff coordinate 14 to 18 neighborhood cleanups annually in these neighborhoods, where we partner with EDCO to provide roll-off dumpsters. And the residents have the opportunity to clean up yards or get rid of large items that they would otherwise have to pay to take to the dump. In coordination with these cleanup events, we do NEAT sweeps, which stands for Neighborhood Enhancement Awareness Training, which are proactive approaches to code compliance. Again, neighborhood services staff inspect neighborhoods a week or two in advance of the cleanup and identify potential code violations that could be addressed with the cleanup. Residents with violations are sent a notice informing them of the violation and encouraging them to participate in the cleanup. This funding also supports our quarterly neighborhood leadership forums. These forums provide a valuable platform for residents to engage with the leaders of the city, become educated on city policy, and address community issues. The sidewalk infill project will provide additional funding to the existing CDBG sidewalk infill project to provide infill in neighborhoods that do not have continuous sidewalks. It will provide safe pedestrian travel and improve walkability in CDBG eligible areas. The Urban Core Recycling Center in Escondido serves as the training and education venue for low-income young adults ages 18 to 26. It provides career readiness programs and education opportunities to the most under-resourced population. They plan to expand their Urban Core Work-Study dual-purpose program to increase core members from 15 to 50 in 2026. Currently, they only have 2 small single-occupancy restrooms on site, which is inadequate for their staff, core members, and the public to use. The project aims to expand and remodel the restrooms to accommodate the additional students. We Care, or Upwards, is requesting funding to pay for the program expenses to run Boost, which stands for Business Operation and Optimization Support Tools. This will expand economic opportunities for in-home family child care providers in Escondido by training them how to use essential tools to make their businesses operate more efficiently. The program will increase child care providers' income, expand the provider's capacity to serve more children, and create new jobs. Here is a summary of the projects I just talked about with their funding allocations. All requests for capital projects received have been recommended for funding. And now I will let Norma tell you about our home program.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, and members of the public. My name is Norma, and I serve as the management analyst in the city's Housing and Neighborhood Services Division, where I help manage the city's home program in coordination with our housing team. Tonight, I'll be walking you through the city's plan to invest our home funds for the upcoming program year and how these investments align with the goals of our new 5-year consolidated plan. The home program is the city's second largest federal entitlement grant after CDBG. It's dedicated specifically to affordable housing. Our consolidated plan prioritizes the development and preservation of both rental and home ownership opportunities for low and moderate income households. Unlike CDBG, home funds cannot be used for emergency shelters or supportive services. These are limited to eligible housing activities only, which include developing affordable rental or for sale housing, assisting low-income households with home purchases, rehabilitating owner-occupied homes, and providing short-term rental assistance to low-income tenants. For the city of Escondido, the home program plays a key role in promoting long-term housing stability. It supports the creation of new affordable units and helps prevent displacement for households that are struggling with rising rents and limited housing options. If you look at the slide on display, it shows the breakdown of the city's home funding for fiscal year 25-26. For program year 2025, the city of Escondido has been awarded $590,000 in home funds. These funds are restricted to permanent housing activities. The budget is broken into 3 required categories. First, 10% of the total allocation is set aside for administration. This helps cover program compliance, HUD reporting, and staff support. Next, 15% is reserved for CHODOs, or Community Housing Development Organizations. These are HUD-certified nonprofit developers like Habitat for Humanity or Community Housing Works, and they must act as owner, developer, or sponsor of the housing project. CHODO activities can include acquisition or rehabilitation of housing, new construction, or direct assistance to low-income homebuyers. The remaining 75% is available for direct housing activities, which include affordable housing development, rehabilitation, short-term rental assistance, and support for first-time homebuyers. For program year 2025, we are proposing the continuation of 2 key home program funded programs. The first, senior rental subsidy program, which provides $200 per month in rental assistance to 30 extremely low-income seniors, totaling $72,000 annually. This program plays a vital role in helping seniors on fixed incomes remain stably housed and supported in their communities while they wait to be called from Section 8, a process that often takes several years. We're also continuing the city's first-time home buyers program, which offers up to $25,000 in down payment or closing cost assistance to eligible low-income households. To qualify, the home must fall within HUD's current purchase price cap, which is currently set at $676,000 for the San Diego County. Year to date, we have successfully issued 1 first-time home buyer's loan and another is in the process. Together, these 2 programs reflect the city's continued commitment to housing affordability and long-term stability for Escondido's residents. And here's Danielle talking about the next steps.
So next steps, we are asking you to approve resolution number 2025-69. If approved, we will submit our consolidated and annual plans to HUD by July 11th, 2025, and then move forward with executing subrecipient contracts starting in July. So that concludes our presentation, and we are available for questions.
Thank you. Do we have public comments on this
Yes,
item?
we have two speakers on this item. First is Melanie Four.
Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, council members, community development team, and fellow members of the public. My name is Melanie Four, and I'm the Community Impact Manager at Upwards. On behalf of the Boost team, I want to thank you for your past support and advocate for continued support of Escondido's family child care providers and working families. Thanks to the city and CDBG funding, the Boost team has partnered with 39 in-home family child care providers in Escondido to offer personalized coaching and digital tools that help them run and grow their small business. This support has enabled providers to create 11 local teaching assistant jobs and expand access to affordable quality care for hundreds of working families. To help make this possible, Upwards has provided a teaching assistant subsidy to ease the financial burden of hiring assistants, allowing them to expand access and improve the quality of care. Last year, Boost providers increased revenue by an impressive 45%, which was much higher than expected. There's still more work to do. Our team's actively supporting new providers through the licensing process, and we're eager to onboard them onto Boost to help them succeed long term. Boost also benefits families directly. So with the help of our family care specialists, any Escondido family, not just those enrolled with Boost providers, can access care that fits their unique needs. This includes emergency backup care. We can find them a match within 24 hours, which as a working parent, I know is a game changer. And then of course, the children benefit from higher quality care. I wanted to quickly share a testimonial from Nasim Kamushian of Candlelight Daycare. The Boost program has truly been a game changer for my home daycare business. From day one, I felt support in every area: curriculum planning, marketing, enrollment, even receiving wonderful toys and materials for the children. Starlin's support and encouragement made such a difference and reminded me that I'm not doing this alone. Thanks to Boost and Starlin's amazing guidance, I've seen real growth in my business and feel more confident than ever in the care I provide. I'm so grateful for this program and highly recommend it to any daycare provider looking to grow and thrive. So this is just one of many testimonials. I actually submitted a handful of others via the public comment portal, so you can reference them there. I'm happy to email them and want to thank you again for your continued support of the child care providers who tirelessly work to care for our little ones and educate the future generation. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Rebecca.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Rebecca Rader. I'm with Voices for Children. We're the CASA organization for San Diego County. CASA stands for Court-Appointed Special Advocate, and we work with the vulnerable children. There's thousands of them that live in foster care in San Diego County, and quite a few that live in Escondido. I realize it's hard making decisions and trying to decide on funding, but you funded us in the past, and should there be any funding that freed up, I would appreciate the opportunity for you to consider funding us again. These are children that are removed from their homes based on nothing they've done, but because their parents can't take care of them. So thank you for all you've done for us in the past, and I just ask that you consider funding us again. Thank you.
No further public on this item.
Okay, we'll close the public hearing. Before I turn it over to my colleagues, thank you both for the presentation. Thank you for all the work you put behind this. I am happy to see how many organizations are being fed with some of this money. And I'm actually ecstatic about the historic structure assessments. That's been brought to my attention so many times over the last 2.5 years. So I'm excited to see that moving forward. But other than that, thank you. I'm supportive of the resolution, and I'll turn it over to my colleagues.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Danielle and Norma. That was very informative. I do have questions regarding some of the items that we're not funding. So Voices for Children, it sounds like that's a county organization. again, for the children that are removed from their home, and that's before they're being placed in foster care or returned to their families. Do we have anything local that provides emergency services or shelter for children that are removed from the family that you're aware of?
No, not that I'm aware of, except this program is run locally, but.
Okay. And I know we're not funding it, but yet I see the importance of it, because even in Escondido, we too are facing, families that abuse their children, and the kids are removed, and so they do have to go to this county organization. So that is one thing that I would have liked to support, because again, our police departments and social services that work in Escondido use that facility, and it's important to provide care for those very vulnerable and victim children. Let's see. I had another question. So on We Care, the DBA Upwards, and the young lady came up and spoke on that. So those are for jobs and to train for jobs, and then also to create businesses. Now, are those specific to Escondido, to where they train to open the daycares in Escondido?
Yes, the funding that we provide services daycares in Escondido.
Okay, very good. Now, going back to, let's go back up, and I'm looking at, so the Alabaster Jar Project, AJP. So they asked for $50,000, and staff is recommending $33,000. I would actually like to give them, I think the $50,000 is very reasonable and needed. As maybe some of you have read and heard in the news, the increase of people that are being arrested for human trafficking, which includes children for sex trafficking. The arrests are being increased, which also in turn means that the victims are being removed. So the survivors are being removed, and so that increases the need for these types of services. And I know that they are overwhelmed. And so I'm glad we're at the 33 that's a recommendation, but I really would have liked to have seen it be at 50, because there is an increase in need, and we see it here in Escondido, so very few organizations are in North County like that, and it's important to support those, especially those that need the care here in our city. Let's see. I was happy to see Project Next. I visited that program. I'm happy to see that we're supporting it. It's an important program, and I hope that the other schools, the other high schools get involved, if not expand the one at Escondido, to at least maybe perhaps expand it in the other schools. That's fantastic. Okay, now on the sidewalk infill, that's on slide 21, I believe. I believe I read, so I know it's a sidewalk infill, so I believe I may have read, and you may correct me on this, does that include the trees around that, or just the sidewalks?
It would include just the sidewalks. If there are trees that are in the way of the construction of the sidewalk, they would have to be addressed, but
Okay.
it's just the sidewalk.
And then, so just for consistency and to make it look nice, so we're going to be addressing neighborhoods as a whole, not just patchwork, correct?
No, this is actually for infill. So,
Oh, I
for
see.
example, we have a project in the works right now in Old Escondido, where majority of the neighborhood has sidewalks. There's one block that, for whatever reason, never had sidewalks installed, so we are making that connection. We do have other neighborhoods throughout the city, and that's actually why we're adding funding, because we are hoping to take a neighborhood approach. But it is very expensive, so I don't know if we'll be able to do entire neighborhoods at a time, but we are looking to take that approach moving forward.
Okay, thank you. And then, Norma, I just have a couple questions for you, just for clarification. So I like the program that we are assisting with home purchasing for low income and those with moderate income, but yet it appears that only 25% of the funds are doing that. The 75%, based on what was reported, goes down to help with rent and some other things. With that, I would like to see it flip because I think home ownership, helping with home ownership is vital. I think people are ready. And so I'd like to see more of the funds go towards helping people own their home and start generational wealth. And again, that creates an open space for somebody else to go slide into that low-income housing that they've moved out of, and just to be able to launch and continue that launch. So I think 25% is kind of low for that, especially if we're trying to, I think it's 25% of the budget, it looks like, was towards helping, from what I understand, correct me if I misunderstood.
The breakdown?
Yes. Was
I
that?
can clarify that. The first-time home buyer program, which I think is what you're talking about, it's $25,000 that we provide for down payment assistance. That comes out of the affordable housing bucket of the money. So there's 10% for administrative costs, that's to pay for staff and operations. And then there's the 15% for CHODOs. The rest of that is just in an affordable housing fund or an account. So there's really no cap on that. It's just that we don't get very many applications. We're happy this year because we've had one, and we have another one in the process. So,
Okay.
but I think the 25 that you're thinking of, it's $25,000 that we provide.
You know, it's actually on page 24, so maybe let me see if I just misread it, or slide 24. If you could bring that up.
Nope, wrong way, sorry.
24. You're messing with my eyes.
Yeah, $25,000.
Okay, I see. And so with that in mind, as far as, we've only had one applicant, so how's our community outreach? What could we do better? I know there's a website, I know there's social media. How can we improve that? Because that tells me that maybe not a lot of people are aware of that. So maybe we could figure out a way to improve that.
It is on our website. We could certainly use our social media platforms. One of the challenges is that the maximum housing price is $676. But that's prices, I believe, I think they're coming down, so that, and I think that's why, and we're looking, you know, condos are options, mobile homes are options. So we can certainly work on promoting that more.
Yeah, I think too, we have multi-generations living together that also would qualify together. And maybe we could have just some neighborhood meetings or community meetings going to, you know, to let them know face to face. So I'd like to see more of an outreach for that. I think that number would go up. And that's all I have. Thank you so much for the presentation.
I have a question for, I think, either the city manager or Public Works. But what would be, I guess, what would be the harm on our side from taking $10,000 from the historic structure assessment and placing it towards the Voices for Children?
Because you can't substitute capital funds for, that's the problem, is that these monies are capped at a specific allocation, and you cannot substitute, the program is only, it was at 20% of the overall funding allocation, so that's the challenge, is the capital monies have to be spent on capital projects, the programming money has to be spent on programming. Remember, this is federally allocated and the rules are federal. So your flexibility, one of the challenges is there's a cap on the funding. And that's what we run into, is multiple programs applying, the federal dollars are capped, and especially the program dollars are capped even further. So it's a federally prescribed formula that the council, in allocating these funds, has to work within the numbers that are given by the federal government.
Understood. And I'm assuming everybody under public service applicants has already been notified that they'll be receiving that money?
Well, they will be after they are approved this evening.
Okay. All right. I will turn it over to anybody else.
Is that something, though, that maybe we could discuss funding in the future outside of this? We can have a discussion.
There's a possibility in the future to discuss additional funding. We'll be looking at having a conversation in our upcoming retreat about funding opportunities moving into the future and investment in the community. But this resource has been typically constrained to this conversation. But yes, we are going to be getting into that conversation.
Okay, thank you.
Sir?
So I've been through the presentation, and thank you very much. I just want to piggyback on what my colleague, Councilmember Fitzgerald, was mentioning. For a number of years, I've been a big proponent about the first-time home buyer program, and the difficulty that we ran into was the price limit on the sales of the homes. The real estate industry was actually frustrated about that too. But with the prices going down and some other things, hopefully getting it out there, because there was a lack of knowledge about that too. I think getting some additional information out there. I'm a big champion on that. Where I go, I talk about it, and they come and, but once they realize the limitations, it's I see their face change. But nonetheless, I'm excited that we have one applicant that has gone through, because that's the first one in a couple of years that I've heard about, and another one that's applying. So thank you for that.
Thank you for the presentation. For those who applied and didn't receive funds, it's not because we don't support you. I think that's what was said in the presentation. Just know that a lot of you do great work. We still support you morally, and then we'll see how it goes next year. So thank you very much.
Great, thank you so much for the presentation. I had a question about the senior rental subsidy program. The 30 households for $200 each. I know we have a current rental support fund. Is it different? Is this a different one than what we have now?
The funding used to be split between the Housing Successor Agency funding and the home program. This year, we're moving everything into the home program.
Okay, and before, was it geared only to seniors?
Yes, it was
Okay.
always seniors.
Got it. And then, so as far as the amount of 200, how did we come up with that amount?
It was 125 last year. It was requested at council here that we raise it to 200. So it is at our discretion. We can increase that amount.
And do we think that that amount is still sufficient? I mean, what's the feedback as far as the previous pot of money and getting used? Have we found that it doesn't cover, or are people not accessing it? If you can provide more information about how that has been going, and maybe some challenges.
The people that are in our program have been in our program for several years. So they stay in our subsidy program until they get picked up by Section 8, which sometimes takes years. The waiting list to get into that program is very, very long. So last year, we expanded from serving 20 households to 30. Now, we only serve, I think, 21 right now. We have not completed, no one's come to us and asked, but at the same time, we haven't done the outreach that we need to do for the program as well. So I guess you could say that is a challenge. But yeah, we have 9 slots available that we are developing. It's going to be like a lottery system. So we'll be advertising, and then we'll be taking a list, and then we'll work off a waiting list.
And then for them to be on that lottery list and eligible, they have to be already signed up for Section 8 housing?
Yes, they have to be senior, income eligible, and on the Section 8 waiting list.
And that's 55 or 50 or 55 for the senior?
It's 55 or 60. I'll confirm.
Okay, please. I am going to speak at the senior council this month, so I would love to share that opportunity with them.
Okay.
In case they don't know about it, and help with the outreach. Thank you for that information. I think that's very important. And then with even the rent caps that we have in California, those are, people are seeing more annual rent hikes, and they're in the $100 and over $100 range. And then, yes, the whole issue with the first-time homebuyer, I know for many years there wasn't anybody that accessed those funds, so it is, this is the most ever. And I remember you mentioning something about the cap of the house price, the medium home price. Is there going to be any change? Do you foresee any change to that, being that some cities and areas, right, their housing is just so much higher, and right now we're using like a federal number universally for the whole country, which isn't, sustainable, and it doesn't really make sense. Have you heard of any conversations of that number increasing for areas like San Diego County?
I have not. I believe last year, I don't remember what the number was before, but I do believe last year it did increase, but very little. And that comes down from HUD to us.
I'm wondering if you know of any ways that we could help push for that to be changed with, we have a federal lobbyist that we work with. And so if there's anything that we can do that would be helpful in having that conversation, I feel like that's just something that hasn't really been addressed. And it's really a systemic problem, is we're capped at this number that's not realistic for our area. 676,000 works in other states, but not in California. And so we're always going to have this issue, right? So if there's a way for us to finally just push that and make them address it, it would be great. Add it to the list of many things we're trying to change, right?
We can absolutely reach out to our team in DC and ask some questions on this front.
Great.
And come back to council with a conversation about how most effectively to bring that conversation forward in Washington, DC. So yes.
Great. And then that's something that we can also talk to our National League of Cities partners. Maybe they have some workshops or ideas and tools for us. I think, I had a question about the Project Next. Last year, so this is the third time it's appeared on our list. The first year, we had approved them, but then they didn't use the money because they were a little late in getting going. So then last year, I was told that they were getting going last year. So, and I didn't get to go to their open house. I really wanted to, and I was not able to go recently. They had an open house. So I haven't been able to get an update on that program. Is this program officially up and running? Because when I read the staff report, it made it seem like they were just starting again. So I wasn't really clear where they stand.
It is up and running. You're correct. The first year, they had an issue with the getting approval from the district to operate inside the school. Second year, we funded them. They were fully operational, very successful. I'd be happy to get you the numbers of what they, accomplished. And so, yes, this is a continuation and hopefully an expansion of providing the services to more students.
Okay, great. Yeah, I would love to see a report out of, how many students they've served. Is it only at Escondido High, or can any other students participate in the program?
Right now, it's only at Escondido High School.
Okay. And then if for some reason so I see that there's a request, there's two columns here. One is for what was requested and what is being recommended, and I know that you've lowered those amounts so that we could help more of the applicants and make the budget fit. If for some reason a program doesn't spend all their money, they budgeted for something, but it didn't end up costing them to run the program, maybe it costs less. Is there a possibility then to use that money for one of the applicants that we didn't get to award or include, if that was the case? Like, so if for some reason two programs had 5,000 left over, would it be possible then later to use that 10,000 for Voices for Children?
Technically, yes, but that would require an amendment to the action plan, which would mean we would have to come back and go through this public process again. And we really wouldn't know that, I would think, until half or at least 3/4 of the way through the year, because they have the whole year to spend the money. So, but technically, yes, as long as we don't go over that cap, we can move money around within the public service.
Okay. And I'm wondering if we can be is it possible to have like a proactive, like if this is the case, where it avoids us having to go through the process again, that we say if there's leftover funds, we will consider other applicants. I don't know if that's something we can do, but kind of foreseeing that that's a possibility and including it in the action tonight. Just an idea for if there is
we're happy
leftover.
to review and see if that's a possibility to do an amendment. I would not want staff to answer that question this evening without doing additional research. So let us take a look at what that could
Okay.
be, and that might be a guidance for this year or for future years. But happy to investigate what that possibility looks like.
Okay. Thank you so much. Great presentation. Thank you for all that have applied. I wish we could fund all of you. You all do great work. There's always more need than there are resources. So I would support staff recommendation. I don't know if a motion has already been made, but,
It has not.
okay, I'll move to approve staff recommendations as
Motion,
presented.
Second. I have one more question before we vote. What would be the ramifications of taking 4,500 or even 9,500 from community services for the Senior Cares Program and putting that towards Voices for Children?
That is your discretion. You can move those funds around if you like.
It's tough because the Senior Cares Program is just as important, so I'm trying to gauge what we are sacrificing to move that money.
I believe the only impact it would have is that the money that you would move from this would then come out of the general fund to fund that staff.
So I would say I cannot answer that question right now. It is not just simply a budget movement. I would say we're acting on reflex a little bit right now. I think our future conversation about additional investment is where we need to go in this conversation. That is obviously something the city has not been able to do. I would urge council to do that because I think the answer we would give tonight would be incomplete about that. But I think this is something that we plan to tackle during the retreat and figure out a process under which to do additional investments in the community beyond this resource, which has traditionally been the limited resource that we have chosen. So.
Okay, I'm not going to offer a substitute motion, but ma'am, would you please make sure your contact information is with the city clerk for me? Thank you. Yeah, the public is invited to our workshop, I believe, right? Yeah, okay. We have a motion and second. If there's nothing else, we'll go ahead and vote.
Voting is open. Can you refresh? Yeah. Motion approved, 5-0.
All right, thank you, everybody, for that. What item is that, 13? On to current business, the Fire Department EMS Program Analysis. I think that's you guys.
Go ahead. It's up here.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and council members. I am Fire Chief John Tenger, and I am joined tonight by Kurt Ladapow, CEO of AP Triton. AP Triton is the consulting firm that performed our emergency medical services program analysis, our ambulance transportation fee study, and our standards of cover study. I will now turn the presentation over to Mr. Ladapow.
Thanks, Chief. I think I'm on, right? Yep. Mr. Mayor, members of council, thank you very much for this opportunity to meet with you and to have us conduct the studies that have been completed. I'd like to take this opportunity to compliment the fire department staff, the line personnel, and everyone who participated, including council members, in the interviews, and the community members that took the time to respond to your community survey. During the course of our studies, this is not an unusual track that I'm going to share with you. During the course of our studies, it's not unusual for an agency to start moving forward with implementation of changes. At the end of our presentation, I will share with you some of the changes that are undergoing now. So why? Why do we do the studies? What's the purpose of the project? A comprehensive evaluation of your emergency medical services, your fire service delivery, and your EMS cost recovery is extremely important to stay current with demands and with the times that are changing. Why does it matter? The evaluation of this type, which should be refreshed every 3 to 5 years, reflect the evolving community risks, service demands, population growth, emerging technology, et cetera. And it should be noted that your last community risk assessment was completed in 2000. And I think we can all admit that a lot has changed just in that short period of time.
In the year 2000?
Yes.
Okay. Wanted to make sure I heard that correctly.
And they should be done every 5 years at least.
Preferably, yes, at 5. The outcome would be is a comprehensive data-driven emphasis on data analytics and standards roadmap that will hopefully guide the city in aligning EMS and fire services with your current and projected needs, improving operational effectiveness, and ensuring long-term sustainability. I believe some of the items we're going to be sharing with you in the overview will show that there is a lot going on within your community. So as the chief mentioned, this was a 3-phase. All 3 were comprehensive. They're right there. I'm not going to read from the slide. But I also want to comment that all 3 also resulted in findings and recommendations, which are at the conclusion of each of the 3 studies. And we will highlight some of the findings and recommendations out of those studies this evening. So we have standards and protocols that we follow. This is one of them, the Center for Fire Service Accreditation, the 6th edition, but also National Fire Protection Association, the Insurance Services Office, the Commission on Accreditation of Ambulance Services, and the Center for Public Safety Excellence are all standards by which drive most of these types of studies. And as you work through the studies, you will see the review of services provided, the description of the community served, your expectations and performance goals, which were driven by a survey, which we'll highlight in just a minute, community risk assessment, historical system performance, and the overall evaluation, conclusions, and recommendations. For the most part, all 3 studies follow this layout. So I want to take a moment here and compliment the city on including the community-wide survey within this study. Not everybody does that. We are seeing a trend to include these surveys, however, but it's a compliment to the city in your commitment to transparency and community participation. The survey overview had 72 responses, as you see here. The survey was done in English and Spanish. Not unusual for us to see the nature of the priorities here. Critical services came out high on fire suppression, EMS, which is a big part of the response workload, and knowing and realizing the history of your area and what you're faced with as far as your wildland-urban interface. Wildland firefighting came up very high in the surveys. Top responder qualities, this is what you want in your personnel: highly trained, prompt, arrival, and professionalism. Your planning priorities are there: ensure technical competence, improve, maintain response times, and you have a 91% satisfaction with those surveyed. Promptness, it was really big. You know, and I want to emphasize that at the end of the Community Risk Assessment Standard of Cover, which is one of the 3, you'll find Appendix C. Appendix C is a great read. There's some tremendous information within the results of the community surveys. Your community, the ones that participated, had a lot to share. We always include not just multiple choice and yes, no's, but we always include a lot of opportunity for open-ended responses. And your community respondents took great advantage of that opportunity. So here's the makeup, if you will, right? The other, which is interesting, I dug in to find out. I always want to know what the other is because sometimes it's a very varied response. In this particular case, the other commented that they were a employee, and a frequent visitor. So obviously 7% of your public safety partners, those are folks that surround you. Frequent visitors to the area, 4%. Business owners, employees within the service area, we always like to see the business owners weigh in, obviously. They're an important constituent. And then 79% are residents of the service area. The community priorities, as we kind of highlighted already, not surprising whatsoever. The 90% of your respondents said fire suppression, 82% EMS, 72% wildland, and then we get into hazmat response. Most likely, one of the items driving the uptick or the high priority for hazmat response was the recent battery storage incident. And then because of the dynamics of your community, technical rescue rated pretty high. Emergency management, I'd like to comment on that. It's interesting that well over 60% of the city fire departments within the state of California entrust the emergency management function to their fire departments, and this is no different here. Water rescue, understandably, when we look at some of the flood control issues, new construction plans. So it kind of goes down from there. From my experience, as you start to see things tick down, it simply indicates that some folks have not taken advantage of your public education programs, your public outreach programs, your community events. There are comments within the survey commenting on how they would like to see the department do outreach. Again, as we dive down into some of the comments, down into some of the survey results, I wanted to know what who was the very dissatisfied. Actually, those are two respondents that commented, and we don't know who they were. There were two respondents that commented they were very dissatisfied, but they didn't provide any details. But all in all, your respondents to the survey are either satisfied or very satisfied with your fire department. So some strengths and recommendations coming out of the survey. Quick response times, professionalism, training, praised, strong satisfaction, leadership, communication, community care. Concerns. It is interesting as I review surveys to see communities that are engaged at the level that your community engaged in this survey relative to adequate staffing, funding, and response times, and in certain neighborhoods. I had the opportunity to ride along and drive down to Rancho San Pasqual area. I certainly understand the concerns. So some key community recommendations you see right there. Add personnel resources to the underserved areas, social media, direct messaging, emails, etc. Emphasize prevention and outreach, and host educational events in collaboration with schools and youth groups. So let's talk about findings and recommendations. And again, 3 very detailed studies, well over 500 pages, so these are highlights. So key program for your EMS. And actually, this particular finding carries itself throughout the study, but leadership capacity is overextended. In the EMS area, oversight is combined with training functions, limiting strategic focus. With the level of activity you have within your EMS program, it is a lot of work to keep it running in a quality way. And dedicated EMS division chief is needed. Improved dispatch partnership, that is ongoing. You've engaged with Northcom, and I'll talk a little bit about one of the positives from Northcom in just a minute. And then your fee structure, when you dive into the ambulance fee study and the findings in that study, you will note that you were somewhat behind the times, so to speak, and not necessarily recovering true costs. Community risk assessment standard to cover key findings. You have gaps in your infrastructure, had gaps in your infrastructure. No, at the time, there was no active capital or fleet. One was previously developed, but the plan was underfunded and not sustainable. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. Fire stations 2 and 5 require some significant maintenance, modernization due to the aging infrastructure and deferred capital investment. Again, you are taking steps to address that, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Staffing and reporting deficiencies, and this goes back to you're running an extremely lean organization. You have insufficient administrative staff, and which results in nobody being able to track the process for optimal performance. Performance and utilization measures, travel times exceed the NFPA guidelines, and engines 132, 131, 137 have a very high utilization. We'll talk about utilization in a minute. So key recommendations for EMS: expand EMS administrative support with a division chief, strategically implement an additional rescue ambulance, strategic expansion of your ambulance response capacity. These two bullets are tied together, and increase the charges. That's implemented as of 1/1/25. So key CRA SOC, Community Risk Assessment Standard, covers what that stands for. Implement an apparatus and light vehicle replacement program for the fire department, in process. Kudos. Provide additional administrative staff and oversight, Division Chief of Community Risk Reduction, Training, Battalion Chief, Admin Assistant. You've recently approved those positions. The EMS Division Chief is slated for presentation in 2026. Develop a monthly, quarterly, and annual report. I've spoken with the chief. That's in process. Increase operational staffing. Staff an additional engine at Station 1 while a new station is built. I'm going to show you some statistics that support that. Research the location for additional stations south of Stations 1 and 2. We drove by a couple areas today. And develop a capital program for fire station innovations. Again, in process. So let's take a look at some data. Here's your study area. You live here, you know the area. These are the locations of your station. I just want to highlight that the PD and fire facility there that's shown as PAFH, there are no apparatus stationed at that location. However, we wanted to chart it for your reference. So this is the foundation. This is the foundation for the fire department that protects the city, okay? You have your operations, your fire prevention, your training in EMS, your administration and disaster preparedness. This is a fairly typical setup in the state of California for organizations your size, other than the fact you're pretty lean at the top. You have 7 stations that serve the city. You have advanced life support ambulance transport, which are provided from 5 of your 7 stations. You know, statistics will show that from a service delivery perspective, that is one of the best ways to deliver high quality EMS throughout your community. You currently today have a total operational staff of 109 folks, including suppression and your EMS. Your minimum daily staffing is 1 battalion chief, 8 captains, 8 engineers, 14 firefighters, et cetera. You're a little lean on your firefighter to population ratio. You're getting a lot done with few. Again, you have an all-risk public safety agency with a broad scope of service. This is a typical West Coast approach to delivery of service. You have fire suppression, you have EMS, you have transport at the advanced level. You have a fire prevention division that's doing inspections, code enforcement, plan review, public education, arson and fire investigations, sometimes referred to as cause and origin, technical rescue and hazmat response. You are a full service agency. Complements, As lean as this organization is, as busy you are, you maintain a insurance service public protection classification of 2. That is a positive for your businesses, particularly your small businesses, as it pertains to their fire insurance. You're knocking on the door of 50 square miles, population 150 to 153. It's interesting, as we did the research here, California Department of Finance, as I've shared with the city manager, one of the reasons we go to them is they're usually pretty current. However, we also dug into Sandag to kind of double check ourselves, and you can see there's not much of a difference there. So what's the big deal about, you've heard me say community risk a few times. What is the big deal about community risk? Well, we're famous for saying the fire service protects life and property, and I got that, and we do, and that is extremely important. But as you take a look at the community, your fire department preserves, from a protection perspective, local businesses and jobs. Sometimes when we do different types of studies, I take a look at the revenue generators, we take a look at the property tax generators, we look at the sales tax generators, and we look at the job creators. And in reality, when you take a look at all those pieces, the fire department is one of the protectors of your economic vitality of your community and protects property values, et cetera. Avoids extended shutdowns. I will share with you, you already know, with a catastrophic loss, it comes off the tax rolls, jobs are at risk, and that domino effect of disposable expenditures goes away. And we maintain confidence in local public safety, important for your investment and development. You want to be a community that people want to come to and develop businesses and homes. Obviously, we believe the fire agency is a critical pillar of economic stability and growth in any community, especially here in Escondido. Community risk. This is a very, very high flight, but why do we care? Why do we care about buildings 3 stories or more? Buildings 3 stories or more have a demand for rescue utilizing a ladder truck and or aerial stream application. And you'll see a majority of your buildings 3 stories or more are here in the cores, which is the location of your ladder truck. Buildings 50,000 square feet or greater. Again, most of them are concentrated here. You have some out here around Station 3. Why is that important? It's all about the ability to put firefighters on the scene to address the potential fire. The bigger the building, the more personnel you need. Much the same with your large fire flow buildings, which you have several. Large fire flow, demand for master stream application from a ground perspective, from an aerial perspective, but also it takes personnel, it takes firefighters to put those master streams and fire lines in place. So it's interesting, when we do studies, we coin a phrase called a snapshot in time. So the snapshot in time for us starts, for your consultants, starts as we start to collect the data, the information, all the inputs. And I will share with you, the staff did an incredible job filling out multiple tables so that we could go to work. So that's when we start. The snapshot stops once the data is loaded and we start working. So this was a snapshot of your community risk when the data finished loaded, and this is from your fire hazard severity zone. Now, what happened just a couple of months ago is the state adopted new community risk maps, which have now been adopted here. So you can see the hazard changed. This has happened throughout the state of California. You have increased your fire hazards throughout the periphery of the city, and I mean, it's all you have to do is drive around, right? And it's pretty obvious. Flood zones are mapped by FEMA. We did talk a little bit about on our drive today about flood zones. This goes back to your all-risk type of agency, being prepared to handle anything that you can throw at your public safety folks. Your system is busy. It's one of the busiest systems I've seen with the number of resources you have. Unit hour utilization. This is your engine unit hour utilization. We like to see it at about 10% per company, because what happens as you start to grow past the 10% factor, that company becomes less and less available to handle calls within their primary response area, meaning it falls on the next due and the next due and the next due. I mean, we talk about travel times. The busier the unit is, the less available they are within their primary response area, the more dependent they become on secondary and tertiary response engines, which increases your travel time. Every single one of your engines, I mean, you've got it right in front of you, it's above 10%. And 3 of them are well above. So that equates to very little time to do much other than to respond to calls. So as I mentioned, the result of the primary unit not being available, secondary, tertiary units coming in increases your travel time, which we did see in the analytics. Your travel times do exceed the NFPA recommendations of 4 minutes. What does this tell us? It tells us there's not enough units in the system. Not much different with your ambulances. Ambulances, the unit hour utilization can tolerate about 30%. So as you can see, 3 of your rescue ambulances are in excess of, going down the 2023 category, are in excess of the 30%, and 131's is at 40%. The system is stressing. The system overall is stressing from a performance perspective. So what are some of the solutions? There are some recommendations in the study. We'll get to those, and I've already talked about that a little bit. The addition of an additional rescue ambulance will help to eliminate stress on the system. It will give you more flexibility in the system. The addition of an additional engine company, preferably at another station, will help eliminate that stress. So it's interesting as you look at service demand. Like I've mentioned a couple of times, you live this, you breathe this, you're elected officials here. You know your city. It's a fact. Higher concentration areas result in higher call volumes. Movement of folks results in call volumes. So as you can see, you're pretty busy down in the core. Very predictable, high density, et cetera. Travel times, this from a modeling perspective, from a pure computer modeling perspective, tells you where within the city you can get in 4 minutes, 8 minutes, and 12 minutes, if everybody's available. I want to talk a little bit about an effective response force. We look at effective response force, aka ERF, when we look at medium risk, high risk potential for fire, as well as multi-casualties. Okay, you've had a very large event in the recent past with the battery facility. That did demand a full effective response force. So the National Fire Protection Association recommends a travel time for the number of units and the number of personnel to meet your effective response force criteria of 8 minutes. As you can see, there's really only 2 areas that can happen right now with your available resources. And they're right around Station 1 and down near 6. So how do you address this risk? As I went back to discussing an additional advanced life support ambulance into the system because you use dual role, firefighter paramedics, an additional engine into the system will in fact give you more capability from an effective response force perspective. And we'll talk, we can talk about mutual aid, automatic aid, all those will enhance, but that's dependent on them being available, and at some point you have a certain risk that we say the standing army should be able to address. This is where we get to celebrate, right? Okay. I mentioned at the very beginning, it is not unusual for things to evolve and challenges start to be addressed during the term of the study as things are bubbling up during the analysis. EMS fees, they've been increased as of January 1. Apparatus deployment and demonstration resource modeling is going on with Northcom. One of the positives that will happen with some of the changes that are going on with Northcom is your computer-aided dispatch, utilizing automatic vehicle location technology, dispatching the closest resource first. Now, I shared with you your travel times are in excess of the NFPA recommendation. Now, that was as of 2023. What I've been talking with the chief and his staff about is once you get a year or two under your belt with the new dispatch system utilizing AVL, it is really going to be interesting to see the difference that may make. Because what will happen is, as busy as that system is, as soon as a call comes up, it's going to grab the closest resource first, which may already be on the road. So it's really going to be interesting to take a look and see it changes in the travel time in the next year or two. Community engagement Adopt a School program has been launched to connect the engine companies with local elementary schools. This is a really, really great program. Fire administration staffing. You're implementing a new community risk division. Now, some folks look at fire prevention as being your community risk reduction program, and in reality, a full-fledged community risk reduction is the fire department, your business community, and your citizens. So as you move forward, it will be great to see the engagement of your business community and your citizens in the community risk reduction program. Fire administration staffing has been taking place. Employee retention, successful. And I did notice there was a lot of stuff on consent. Your labor negotiations are rolling right along. Social media present, I mentioned early on that in your survey it talks about from your citizens, they want more engagement. The department is already taking those steps. And then working closely with city leadership on battery energy storage systems. There's new technology evolving right now for suppression systems that we've been privy to that will really make a big difference in battery storage systems. So your budget, hats off. I mean, I would love to be the fire chief. So your budget approvals, a new division chief, a new training battalion chief, a full-time administrative assistant. You have 3 new engines on order. It is very distressing that it's taking the industry so long to build these engines, and it's extremely distressing they've gotten so expensive. So it's very refreshing to see that you're taking a proactive step here and getting them on order, as well as a backup or a pickup for BC. 1 new staff vehicle. Operational funding and implementation of the Lexipol operational policy system services. That is ongoing. I talked to the chief about this the other day. He's already got a lead identified to work with Lexipol. This is becoming, and it's interesting, Lexipol has been around with the law enforcement for years. Well, now it's transitioning over and standardizing policies and procedures in fire. It's a very positive program. Funding has been budgeted to enable Public Works to undertake fire station maintenance and modernization projects. Hats off to you folks. This is very, very positive. So with that speed presentation, we're open for questions and discussion.
Do we have any public comments on this item?
None.
Okay. I have a couple questions. On one of the slides towards the beginning, it talked about one of the concerns was the level of service provided on the east side of town. And I was just wondering if you could elaborate a little more on that. I live across the street from the fire station there, and I know you guys are always busy, but is it just people feel like it's taking too long, or I guess what is the concern there?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I think that's more towards the San Pasqual Valley.
Okay.
That was actually stated in one of the comments, was getting out to that area out there.
Okay, that makes a little more sense. What is the right population ratio? Because I was looking back, so
It's on there.
looks like there was a 22% increase in our population from 1990 to 2000, and then since then another 13 or so percent, and we're right at that 150,000 mark. So what is the right ratio? And if it's in there, I'm sorry, I must have missed it.
It's recommended that it's not recommended, the national average that's published is 1.54 to 1.81.
And we're at 0.6?
You're at 0.64. I'll be honest with you, it's hard to make that national average.
Is it? What is the, I guess that is the average. That was a dumb question, but it's all right. Okay, that is all I have for now. The last thing that I'll say is it is pretty clear the level of service that is provided by the Escondido Police Department exceeds, I think, everybody's expectations. What did I say? Oh, my bad. Fire department, police too, whatever. But the fire department. So I appreciate all of your service and for doing the work that you do with the small amount of resources we do have. So thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I too would like to commend the fire department, and in spite of all the limitations that you've had in equipment and the things that you've done, you've still managed to provide exceptional service, and it's evident based on the public response. So that's really good. So thank you, Chief, for that. And Mr. Latapau, thank you for such a thorough study and explanation, and it just gives you a broader perspective of why it is so important to be able to provide the equipment, staffing needed for the fire department, thinking of the industrial buildings and all those things that people really don't consider. So I'm glad that that's being put in the forefront, again, to show just how important it is needed. Let's see here.
We had a very large team on this project, so kudos to the team.
That was really good. So the NFPAs, and maybe you can explain this, you spoke on the NFPA's recommendation of having a 4-minute response team. And then you stated that the effective response force, the ERF, has an 8-minute, or they recommend an 8-minute travel time. Is that the same thing, or is that?
So, no, the 4-minute travel, because there's multiple elements to the response continuum, right? There's the help I need, 911. There's the call processing at the dispatch center. And then there's the time it takes the crews to get on the road if they're not already on the road. And then there's the travel time. The travel time is actually road time. That is the one that is the hardest to make any changes to, because we certainly are not going to put a policy out there to tell the guys to go and gals to go 10 miles over the speed limit. So, but the 4-minute travel is a piece of that continuum that the National Fire Protection Standards recommend that piece be 4 minutes. Effective response force is the travel time, and that's an 8-minute, is the travel time it takes to get enough apparatus and personnel on the scene of a medium to high-risk fire and a multi-casualty event. So that is an 8-minute travel for however many units it takes to get, I think your ERF is 20. So how many units it takes to get 20 people there, in 8 minutes. So some of that, when you look at the concentration of resources, you can achieve that in the Corps. But once you start moving out, you don't have enough resources.
Okay, thank you. And then also, I really like the 80 AM that you've already implemented or will be implementing. The auto vehicle location.
Yeah, when we switched over to Northcom, that became automatic for us, and that's been a game changer for us.
And how long ago was that?
It's been a little over a year. It was a year in April, so we'll be able to capture more data here shortly.
Oh, great, that's so great. And then also to the community risk program that you're having and community engagement, I just think that's fantastic. So thank you for the presentation, and thank you, Fire, for all you do, and police, don't want to leave anybody out, But this is a good time for Escondido. It's a good thing. Thank you.
A lot of data, a lot of information to go through, and very necessary. Thank you for that. Thank you, team, all three chiefs here this evening. And the team that's been back there, and some of you snuck out, I figure you probably got a call. So you guys needed to sneak out. And I will say that I enjoy seeing our fire department continue working toward a more excellent response time and effort. And I worded it like that because I know you continue to work to a better and make it more excellent, meaning you're already excellent. So thank you very much for that. Being the representative for the city to the Northcom JPA, the discussion that, not a official discussion, but we talk about, or we hear about Escondido having an 8th station here, and firefighters kind of laugh about it and stuff, but the reality is that Northcom has been a game changer for us because all of a sudden there's another station that becomes available for us. And that just shows how much the need is for another station here in Escondido. Can you chat a little bit about the difference? We were talking about ALS when it comes to ambulance. Why would we not be using BLS versus ALS if they're less expensive? Can you help us understand, particularly the community, why we wouldn't do that?
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. So our system is set up in such that we have a firefighter, paramedic, and an EMT on all of our ambulances so that we can pivot at any time. So let's say a BLS call comes in. We arrive on scene. All of our patients, regardless of what the call comes in at, will always receive a paramedic level assessment. Now, if the patient is BLS, then the EMT can ride in the back to the hospital. If something changes, we could always pivot with that firefighter paramedic to take care of the patient. So what the fear is, if we, with our dispatch side, if we don't get it right, when that call comes out and we send the not the appropriate resource ambulance-wise, then we're caught in having to send another unit out, perhaps, or having to take the firefighter paramedic off of the rig, off of the engine, put them on a BLS ambulance, transport to the hospital, and that engine company now has to follow up to the hospital, and it's out of service for at least an hour, and that district will not be covered. So this is the most effective way for our community to be covered on both sides, BLS and ALS.
Thank you, Chief. I was aware of that, but I wanted to make sure that our community could hear the reasoning behind. We talk about ALS and really no longer about BLS. So thank you for that. There was in the slides talked about adding personnel resources to underserved areas. Can you expand a little bit on that? What are you talking about specifically about personnel or resources? Are we talking the new station? Or what are we talking about?
So when you
He's trying to get to the heat map. And so basically what that's saying is in the core of the city, when we have stations 1, station 2, and station 7 all tied up on calls, that we don't have a resource in that area, and that would fall south of station 7, east of station 1, west of station 2. And that's what's being referred to with the station 8 and station 8 and engine 8.
So this is the area the chief was just talking about. So you can see you've got gaps in your coverage area, and the busier you get, and there's an area that's starting to heat up down here. But definitely, you've got this area between 2 and 1. And then you've got a really big gap down in here. So as you look at the community survey, some of your community is very aware of this, by the way. So I don't know if that was the area you were pointing out.
Did that answer, council member?
Yes, I
Okay.
thought there was something else coming to that.
It's the additional resources to get to those areas.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you about that. And then on the ERF, and with the time, 20 minutes, I guess, if I understood correctly, is our time that we're working on?
Minimum of 20 personnel within 8 minutes of drive time.
Okay, thank you. And does that include strike teams, or is this specifically for Escondido Fire?
This is specifically for the City of Escondido Fire Department.
Okay, all right.
Calling
Thank
up
you
a
very-
strike team, you won't make it in 8 minutes.
Yeah, I know. That's why I was wondering about that. Thank you.
All right, I'll keep mine short. Thank you for the thorough presentation. I look forward to going back and looking at that 500-page document you mentioned. I have a question on the community risks, some of the questions from the survey. Did anything come up on illegal fireworks?
Not in the survey.
I'm just curious.
No.
We are working on, just if there was like a space for them to get really specific about those things. No? Okay, just was curious about that. I'm glad that, first of all, thank you, our fire department, for your professionalism, everything that you do, and considering the difficult circumstances that we've had in our budget deficit, and just your company, AP Triton, has been very professional. And it's been a pleasure working with you. I really appreciated having the opportunity last year to participate in the one-on-ones, and I really appreciate the outreach that you did for that. And then thank you to the citizens of Escondido for passing our sales tax measure, which is allowing us to finally address these issues. So we're moving down the right path, and I'm excited for what's
Absolutely.
ahead. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. Fire Department, thank you guys so much for all the work you guys do. I mean, you guys are literally lifesavers. You guys have helped people I love personally. And so just thank you for everything you've done on such limited resources. You guys are heroes. Thank you.
Do we need a vote to receive and file? No? Okay. Great. Thank you very much for the presentation. We look forward to fulfilling some of those recommendations.
Thank you for your continued support.
Okay, last item, Urban Forestry Management Program.
Good evening, City Council. My name is Priscilla Roldan. I'm an associate planner here at the city, and tonight I am joined by our consultant, Dudek, to provide an informational update on the Urban Forestry Management Plan and Program. The purpose of tonight's presentation is to bring awareness of the program and glean general feedback from you all, and there is no formal action required from you all other than to receive and file the presentation. Tonight, I am joined by Konami Otani next to me from the Dudek team. I will let her introduce herself.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. As Priscilla mentioned, my name is Konami Otani. I work with Dudek. We're an environmental engineering firm. I'm an ISA certified arborist and urban forest planner, and I look forward to being here today.
Alrighty, to jump right into our presentation, we'll kick off tonight's presentation with background and a quick overview of the Urban Forestry Management Program effort, including timeline and deliverables. And then thereafter, Konami will provide an overview of urban forestry management plans and ongoing efforts at the City of Escondido, along with next steps for the program. So to begin with some background, back in 2021, the city adopted the Climate Action Plan, among other things, directed staff to develop an urban forestry management plan. In the fall of 2024, the city authorized staff to accept grant funding from the U.S. Department of Agriculture and the U.S. Forest Service. This grant allowed the city staff to begin the urban forestry management plan programming effort. In the winter of 2024, staff released a request for proposals to select a capable consultant that had the expertise to deliver on this program. However, on the beginning of 2025, the federal administration announced cuts to the Inflation Reduction Act and staff cuts to the U.S. Forest Service, which caused delays and reduced the grant's timeline from 3 years to 6 months. Despite that, unprecedented and unforeseen circumstances and changes, in the spring of 2025, City Council allowed staff to proceed with this effort, and we have kicked off the project since. So we signed the contract, and after signing the contract, DUDEC and city staff hit the ground running by gathering information and data through community engagement and site collection. In late spring and now summer, DUDEC and staff have begun conducting community engagement activities, and in the fall of this year, DUDEC and staff hope to finalize a draft of the Urban Forestry Management Plan and have it for public comment. So here on your screen, you can see some of the Climate Action Plan's objectives. So in addition to developing an urban forestry management plan, there are other tree-related objectives that we have that includes planting approximately 9,000 trees in the public areas and new developments between now and 2035. It includes achieving a certain percentage of canopy coverage in commercial, residential, and priority neighborhoods, as well as the ambitious goal to have 1 tree per resident by 2088. So the Urban Forestry Management Plan and Program would support the CAP's objectives by delivering on some of those plantings and creating a framework to increase the city's urban tree canopy and explore ways to deliver on Strategy 9's objectives. This effort can be broken down in 2 different categories. So there's the early tree and tree planting component, and then there's the development urban forestry plan management plan component. The early tree care entails the maintenance of Arbor Day tree plantings that occurred this year and in previous years, and it also includes plantings in certain focus areas. While the development of the Urban Forestry Management Plan entails the collection of quantitative and qualitative data by taking a look into the city's tree inventory, canopy, and programming. It also entails community engagement to make sure that conclusions that come out from the initial collection of data are congruent and aligned with the community's values and priorities. Outcomes from both of these analyses will be compiled into recommendations, which will be reflected in the draft of the Urban Forestry Management Plan. So here's a quick glance of the focus areas that the city is required to examine as part of this grant. Residents in these areas have been identified to experience disproportionate amount of exposure to heat and pollution in accordance with the Council of Environmental Justice, Climate and Economic Justice screening tool. And while the Urban Forestry Management Plan's plantings and inventory will focus on these areas, the analyses themselves will be citywide. So I'm going to pass the presentation to Konami to finish off and talk about urban forestry management plans and what Escondido looks like today.
So an urban forest management plan is an actionable long-term strategy to maintain tree canopy cover for future community members. When we're developing an urban forest management plan, we look at several factors, including urban tree resources, so that would be publicly maintained trees, as well as an aerial view of both public and private growing trees. A review of the budget and staffing of the current urban forestry program, and both community and staff engagement. And as a note here, urban forests are planted by people and require continued care and maintenance to grow and mature. So looking at the current tree resources of Escondido, so we have some preliminary results. The city of Escondido within their city boundary has about 18% canopy cover at this time. And the most common species in your publicly managed inventory are queen palms and coast live oaks, and those are occurring at a higher rate than the recommended sustainability metric for an urban, sustainable urban forest. And about 60% of the trees that are within the inventory right now are high water use species. So that's the current state of some of the urban forestry resources, and how we'll address those items through the UFMP is through an updated species list where we'll incorporate some of the considerations like such as water use, climate readiness, so trees that are doing better in hotter places, and then also ensuring that we're planting the right tree in the right place so we give it an opportunity to mature fully and won't get removed, which will all result in more canopy cover. Looking at the current urban forestry program, so we have an annual Arbor Day celebration for the city of Escondido. Additional plantings are funded as, are planted as funding becomes available through the Free Street Tree program. Maintenance for trees are called in by residents, and the in-house urban forestry crew is supplemented by contracted maintenance services. And looking at the sustainability of Escondido's urban forest, we used the estimated age of the trees in the publicly managed inventory and compared it to the sustainability goal for a municipal forest. And as you can see, there is a low percentage or lower percentage of middle-aged and mature trees within the city's inventory. And this would be important because larger and older trees provide more benefits to the community than the smaller or younger trees, and we need time for trees to mature to provide these enhanced benefits. So mature trees also provide the most economic benefits through their value of ecosystem services like rainwater capture, cleaner air and energy savings, and opportunities to support wildlife habitat. The urban forest is an appreciating asset as long as the city is able to continue maintaining it, and sustaining urban forests over time may necessitate an update to the policies, programs, and reach of the urban forestry program.
Alrighty, so as I mentioned before, to complement the data that's been collected by our consultant, staff have actively engaged with the community through a survey, tabling events, and through the Free Street Tree program. So we are placing currently door hangers on people's doors to let them know that as part of the program, we are conducting tree plantings. So some of the comments and feedback that we received thus far include the desire or the want more shade trees within neighborhoods, that residents are willing to plant trees if there is financial assistance, and the desire to have more trees along the downtown area.
And next steps for this program. So the community survey is live until July 18th. If you are able to share it widely among your networks, that'd be very appreciated. We also have some tabling events coming up. So we'll be at Cruising Grand on Friday in combination with the city, the fireworks show on July 4th, farmers market on July 15th, and we'll be in the public comment period and visiting folks at National Night Out to receive their feedback on some of the key findings and recommendations of the development program. We also have 2 focus group meetings this week, actually. So tomorrow we have a business-based focus group meeting where we'd like to talk to business owners about their perspective on trees and how trees can impact commercialism. And we will have a neighborhood focus group meeting on Saturday morning, which we have invited some groups to and hope to talk to folks there. And the Free Street Tree program, please contact the city before July 31st and to receive a free tree.
That concludes staff presentation, and we're here for any questions.
Thank you. No public comments?
None.
Okay, I'll keep my comments brief. Thank you for the presentation. You know, when you go to other cities that have a healthy amount of trees, it adds a character that I think we're missing in some parts of the city. So I'm really looking forward to seeing this implemented and seeing what comes of it. So thank you.
Yes, great presentation. Could you please, let's see, on slide 8, the focus area map, could we bring that up? Okay, so I really like how designated that is. So I think that it's very important. I also want to remember, or have people remember, that even though we focus a lot on the thoroughfares, I'd really like to see a focus on the older neighborhoods that are very densely populated, the ones with the bad sidewalks and not a lot of shade. So I think it's important because we're beautifying our city, but it really has to be spread out to everybody. Now, regarding the outreach, I'm assuming it's also being done in Spanish, correct?
Yes.
All right. And then the neighborhood meeting is, you said this Saturday morning? Could you remind me where again? I don't know if there was a slide with the information or where we could access it if we want to post it and invite the community.
Yeah, we can. And it will be held this Saturday, June 28th from 10 a.m. till 12 p.m. at the Park Avenue Community Center.
All right, thank you for the presentation. I appreciate it.
Having to cut from 3 years to 6 months and how far have you moved? Thank you so much. That is definitely a challenge and a stress. This has been something that's been important to me over the years. We've looked at the heat maps and all of that, and when I represented District 3, there was a significant amount of that district with a higher heat density. So I was looking at the focus area, and it covers some of it, and some of it doesn't, but we have to start somewhere. So thank you for that. It's great. Tree canopies, I was reminded today. I drove through a street here that had beautiful, large trees, cars parked under them because they had shade. And it just reminded me of how important that is. So thank you so much. I've asked the question before regarding mobile home parks. We're looking at trying to get 1 tree per person. That's kind of our goal. In mobile home parks, we live entire families in them, and there's very limited space. How do you propose that we're going to work with that? Apartment buildings, the same thing, but very excited to have this work continue. Thank you.
Thank you for this. This is, I don't know, I think it's kind of exciting. I really do appreciate the work. The focus areas I think are really important, really accurate, knowing the city pretty well. I have a few questions. So when we're looking at the tree recommendations, are we looking at drought tolerant and drought resistant trees, or are we looking at native, or is there an overlap? What's the goal?
Sure. So actually for native species for Southern California, for trees specifically, there's a very limited number. I believe it's 5 or 7. So pretty limited, and
Right.
we really want to focus on biodiversity as well. So building resiliency by making sure we have different trees that can withstand different pests and different conditions.
Right.
So we are looking at, of course, water use parameters, but also climate-ready species. There's a study where it took the hardiness zones that exist in California, found cities with those hardiness zones in hotter areas, and are incorporating some of those trees that are doing well in those areas into the tree palette. So a combination of those considerations.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Can you go to page 8, please? Was it 8? 13. So obviously large trees, extremely desired because of the shade structure and everything. How feasible is it to have these large trees, but at the same time trying to reduce water use? I mean, I know that typically these larger trees are more water thirsty as opposed to the smaller trees, which sometimes often require less.
So the water use is based on the specific species as opposed to the size of the tree.
Right.
So regardless of whether we're recommending species that are small, medium, or large, those species would have the low or very low water use considerations.
Are there a lot of drought tolerant trees that grow large and don't require a lot of water?
I think.
I guess like the overlap, right? Like how many, and this is my curiosity. I'm not, I just want to know, like, how would the city look like? Yeah.
So A few other things that we
Yeah.
consider within the recommended species list is also your current population of trees.
Okay.
So there will be considerations of that included as well. I think, are there a lot of trees that are large and shady and drought tolerant? I think I can't necessarily put a number to that now.
Right.
I could, of course, get back to you. But we are focusing on a sustainability metric of a no more than 5% of one species, more than
Right.
10% of each genus. So we'll be looking at those parameters as well.
So the ones that, we're looking at a few trees that do occupy quite a bit of our space, as you're talking. We have palm trees, we have oak trees and everything, as you know. So we would be replacing them, I'm guessing. That's part of the goal too.
So it wouldn't be an active looking for a tree to remove to replace.
Sure.
It would be as trees are coming down from natural maintenance practices, then considering planting a species that would be more appropriate.
Certain trees that aren't doing well, diseases, or that, are damaging infrastructure or foundation, right?
Correct.
Okay. That's it. Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. This is definitely a priority and something that I've been hearing from the community for over 6 years on a need since our city gets very hot. So I appreciate this. I wish it was longer. But I know that that's unfortunately the reality we have with a lot of important things being cut at the federal level. Is it possible for when we add trees? Right, I participate in the Arbor Day plantings. And the trees that we plant are pretty small, and it's really nice to drive by or walk by and see that they're growing. Do you anticipate also planting trees that are bigger size, or are they all going to start at the small level?
So it's actually a common misconception. The research shows that the larger trees, unfortunately, they're compromised in the nursery system often. So they're root bound. So although you might plant a larger tree at the onset, usually the 15 gallons sizes grow just as large, faster, and are a better established tree in the landscape. So my recommendation would be to continue with that smaller size to prioritize the root system.
Okay, got it. Thank you. And then how long does it normally take? I know it probably depends on the species, but how long does it typically take for a tree to become mature?
It definitely depends on the species, and I want to say I'm gonna have to get back to you on the specific years there for the species.
Okay, thank you. I'm just curious if it's something like in 5 years we could have a mature, a tree or something like that, or if it's gonna be beyond that.
More like 40 or 50.
Got it. Oh my goodness. Okay. Yes. We have a long ways to go.
Thank you.
We have a long ways. But I'm very excited about this. I did see the survey that you had, and I know that you're going to be doing some in-person tabling events. In your survey, in the questions, it doesn't let you, and I notice in most of the questions, it doesn't allow you to select more than one option. So there's several questions, and so you can select one, but there might be like 2 or 3 things that are equally important. Is there another way to capture those kind of priorities since it's not set up like that in the survey?
During the in-person events, we will have engagement boards for folks, and usually for those in-person events, we ask them to pick top 3.
Okay,
so that
good.
would be a little bit more of a distribution there.
Okay, good. Yes, and I think this is probably the only survey you're going to do considering the amount of time you have in your timeline, but I would encourage if there's other ways to incorporate additional feedback because, I know that more than one thing could be important, right? I think that's great that you're going to do those in-person events and that you'll be able to capture additional information. And I normally would think, native, but you've mentioned there's only like 5 to 7 species of that. So I think the biodiversity, and you're the tree expert, right? So, and then just climate ready, making the right tree in the right place, really important because I know a lot of the trees in my district were taken out because they were lifting sidewalks and driveways, and then they just never got replenished. And that's, part of what we're seeing on the heat map is they're the areas that require the focus. So I'm glad that we have a strategy that will work for the future. And the Arbor Day event is such a wonderful event. We always look for at least 100 volunteers, and it's always the last Saturday in April. So put that on your calendars for next year to join us to plant trees the last Saturday in April. And we do it like in less than 2 hours with 100 volunteers. So it's always a great thing to do, and I would love to help promote this. So I'll be enlist my help in spreading the word and getting more people to participate and know about how to get their free trees. Thank you.
Council member?
Just one more question that I thought of after my colleague asked about the water, as far as the amount of water for the trees that we would be planting. Regarding the shedding of leaves, do you take into consideration those types of trees? Because I'm thinking of the maintenance that it may require the city to have to go out and clean that up.
We typically avoid fruiting, so fruiting trees, things like that. Unfortunately, with leaf litter, those could be left there. If that's desirable, it's better for the soil and as they biodegrade, so we could do that. But with trees comes debris that it is a part of the shade canopy that they provide. But I believe the street sweeping would take care of the right of way. And then for the spacing of the trees, we are ensuring that maintenance is able to access the trees for maintenance.
I will just add that as part of this effort, we're also working on updating the tree list that we have for the city. And so with that, we're working with other departments. So our departments like Public Works will also provide input to see what's the most adequate tree to have here in the city. So they'll have that into consideration, right? The budget that Public Works has and the expected maintenance associated with trees.
Because some just seem to do it more than others, and I'm thinking of neighborhoods, even though the street services will, the street sweeper will clean the debris off the street. But if it's going to look messy in certain neighborhoods that we're trying to, create a more welcome environment in the neighborhood, that's just something that I would like for us to take into consideration. Thank you.
All right. I believe this is information only, right? You don't need to vote on anything tonight. All right. Thank you both for your presentation and for your work on this issue. Item 16, future agenda. Anybody like to add anything to a future agenda?
I would, Mayor. I'd like to request that the city writes a letter to our congressional representatives in regards to the need for immigration reform and how the lack of policy is affecting our city.
I will second that.
I'll third that.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, we'll move on to council member subcommittee reports, and I'll kick us off tonight. This morning, I went to a groundbreaking of a market and gas station out in Paula, which was actually a lot of fun. Don't get to spend too much time out there, so. Last Saturday was the Children's Museum of Discovery 25th anniversary. We did a proclamation. It was great to see, I don't know, seemed like there was a couple hundred people there. It was a lot of fun. Right before that, I went to Meadowbrook Retirement Community, where I was on the Johnny Carson show. And when they asked me to come on the Johnny Carson show, I had to ask, who is Johnny Carson? Little before my time, but it was a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun with that group that night. Saturday and Sunday, I spent most of the day at the gun show, which was also a lot of fun. And then I went to Sandag's Transportation Committee, where there's nothing really much to report from there. So that concludes my report, and I'll go down this way and this way. Actually, let's go this way. Deputy Mayor.
All right. So I had an opportunity to go to the opening exhibition night for the Chicana San Diego exhibit at the Center for the Arts. It was over 200 works, over 100 artists, Chicana artists at the center. Go see it. It's there until November, so even for the Dia de los Muertos, you'll be able to see it. Amazing, incredible. And I also participated in the 25th anniversary celebration for the Children's Museum of Discovery. They had a brand change, and that's their new name. And they told me that was their most busiest day ever, and they had that day 1,400 people. And it's not, well, they weren't all there at the same time, so it was probably hundreds when we were there. But throughout the day, 1,400 people were there, so amazing. I also got to stop in at the tail end there was just a lot of things happening on Saturday, all at the same time. I did get to catch the last few minutes of the Escondido History Center's open house. They have a new board, and there's just some exciting things that projects that they're doing, and I'm happy that we did have that. The monies for the improvements to the History Center. And then I know we won't have a meeting for a couple weeks, but I will be going to the Local Progress Conference, and I will report back on that when we return. Thank you.
I had a briefing for, with the Clean Energy Alliance today. We have a meeting tomorrow. I'm sorry, yesterday. We have a meeting tomorrow. Nothing really drastic to report there. Also went to the Children's Discovery Museum. It was a lot of fun. If you have any children or any loved ones that are between the ages of like 2 to 10, I'd really recommend taking them there. And as always, thank you to my community for the privilege of serving.
Just a couple of things. I have an NCTD board meeting tomorrow morning. Tomorrow evening, I have a Rotary 70 Club, Route 78 Club meeting, installation dinner, and Chamber of Commerce 114th Awards dinner installation on Friday that I'll be attending, and a few other things, but that concludes my report.
Well, I got to do a lot of the fun things that my colleagues did. The Children's Museum was fantastic, 25 years. The Paula groundbreaking. It's really exciting to see that we're going to have a really good partnership with Paula. They're very interested in investing in Escondido businesses and so on. So we look forward to that partnership from that meeting. This last Saturday, I attended the San Pasqual reservation gathering. There was a peony competition, and it was spectacular. It was up in Lake Wolford. They're going to be holding another festival in the San Pasqual Valley, so that should be closer to November. So hopefully you'll look into that, or I'll share that information so you can attend. Tomorrow evening, I'll be attending the Sunrise Rotary Club's demotion and induction dinner on Friday, the Chamber of Commerce's induction dinner I'll be emceeing, and my colleagues will also be there to present. And Saturday, the California Center for the Arts first annual awards dinner, and it's really for the San Diego County, and a couple of organizations here or events that occurred here in Escondido have been nominated. And one of them was the Indigenous Festival that we held for the first time. It was the first annual, so that was one of the top nominees. I believe it has received the most votes. So that's really exciting news for our community. And that's all that I have to report. Thank you.
City Manager?
With the July 4th holiday approaching, I wish everybody a happy July 4th, but remember, in the city of Escondido, fireworks are illegal. We're asking folks to come see the fireworks show and not set off their own fireworks, because they are dangerous and they can cause fires and property damage, and you can be injured. So please keep our community safe, enjoy the holiday, and come see the fireworks downtown.
Do we have any other public comments on the item, on
None.
anything? No? All right. Go ahead. So this meeting's adjourned.
This meeting's adjourned.
Here. There you go.